This episode may contain strong language and adult themes. Viewer and listener discretion is advised.
Sam?
Yes, dear.
Good evening. Welcome to this episode of the 22 Dropouts. Why are you rubbing your nipples in the South African shirt?
Well, I wasn't quite rubbing my nipples, but it was very close. But thank you. They were not that large.
Being a Guinness Book of World Records.
You know, like a couple of weeks ago, England lost against Scotland.
And then there we go. Right. Anyway, welcome to this week's episode of the 22 Dropouts, where we mute Sam. Oh, fuck off!
Good start, lads.
Wales then beat England in between England winning against Italy, and I just thought I'd send a little reminder to the English fans out there what it's like to lose against another team. Oh yeah, it was the Springboks.
You can't see him now. It's fine. You can't see him now. Anyway, welcome to this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed the debacle that was last week, where I forgot to actually record the show after doing a 3-minute intro. So it's a bit like going back to the old camera with my film and not putting it in. So you'll be glad to know that tonight I have clicked record, even though Sam fucked up the opening. So never mind about that. Don't forget, have a look up there. Check out our social media channels. Just search for @22dropouts. I have great news tonight.
Oh dear.
Not that it's International Women's Day or it's Commonwealth Day, but because we are joined by a two-time Paralympian from 2008 and 2012 who has, let's put it this way, he's done a lot more than me, to say the least. Competing in the Paralympics in 2 different events, firstly in rowing, then in sitting volleyball, and now he's got bored of that as well, and he now does wheelchair basketball, as well as being a transformation coach and hosting his own podcast called the Mindest Athlete. It's James Roberts. Hi, buddy. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Mate, you're very welcome, because you've done more in your little career than all of us lot here now on Celebrity Squares have done, and most of us are definitely twice as old as you. So you can feel glad that you're putting us all to shame tonight, you bastard. Anyway, tell us a bit more about yourself, mate, and how you've got into the sports you've got into, and particularly this mindset, setting yourself up for peak performance mentally, because I can't even get out of bed mentally. Never mind set for peak performance after lockdown.
Well, I come from probably a long line of family that's been in the military. So I think discipline and focus, I won't say it comes second nature, but it comes pretty much as it's marked on the tin. I get frustrated probably with a lot of things people do very easily, but you probably can see why. But it wasn't always that way. I started out in mainstream sport before I went into Paralympic sport, and it was a chance conversation, I won't say encounter, with one of my former coaches when I was 15. What's your thoughts about doing disability sport? I was not pleased. I was probably taken aback as being taking it nicely, but probably on hindsight, once I come off the high horse and was open to the idea and the possibility of a career in sport. So I think the mindset you talk about, Mike, it's probably looking at things from an open-minded perspective. It's not black and white. There's that shade of gray of pretty much, well, you all being, you talked about me with refereeing earlier. Pretty much rugby is borderline that all the time. It just matters on what side of the fence you find from a spectator perspective, team. Well, I didn't know if you were going to bring it up the French referee. I think
He went there. He's gone there. Keep going.
Thank you so much.
he ultimately saved his own bacon by publicly saying he's made a mistake. I think where the problem lies with that is the TMO is French as well. Why don't they communicate in their native language? I don't think they make that mistake. Maybe one of them, but not both of them.
Good question that they brought up on the day as well. So thanks for bringing that up. That was one of the review questions they brought up. Why didn't you speak French?
But do you think that's a little bit of an excuse?
Probably.
For poor performance? I don't know.
Wouldn't the general public who are listening in be wondering what they were saying in French and not understand it?
Yeah, but ultimately the English conversation I had was pretty much difficult to understand.
Shit, wasn't it?
To be honest, if you look at this show and you look at the French referee, it'd be the same as listening to Sam.
Yeah, I mean, Sam could be speaking in French when he makes a point on this show. Interesting you talk about that public apology. How do you feel that impacts you know, from it, because you coach mindfulness and mindset, don't you, for not just high performance but in business as well? What's your take on that public apology? Because not long ago it would be, no, big leaders don't apologize. Now the world's changed a bit. Where do you stand on that?
I'd probably be in the camp of the English. I'd be pretty pissed off behind the scenes because ultimately they know that he made a mistake on the day. He's publicly said he's made a mistake. That's not going to change the result. And that's probably going to, if you're on the wrong end of that, that's going to infuriate you even more.
I wasn't.
No, shut up, Taff.
James is in the corner.
Yeah, James is in the corner and he's Welsh as well. No, that's very interesting. I mean, how would you, as you know, if you were called in now to go and coach Pascal on how to prepare for his next international game, what three bits of advice would you give him to make sure he was at the peak of his performance next time he stepped out on the field again with England? I said against England then, didn't I? Sorry, I meant refereeing England. I know he wasn't really wearing the Welsh
He's got a history of doing that. That's the second game he's done that.
I got one bit of advice: quit.
Look, we're positive. We're being positive today. There's enough negativity.
Sorry.
We're being positive.
Positively quit.
Positively quit.
From a mindset perspective, he's obviously got to forget about it. And whoever he gets, be it England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, obviously won't get the French, but the Italians or somewhere in the Southern Hemisphere, he's obviously got to forget about that blunder.
Well, he got relegated, didn't he? Because he's been sent to Scotland, Italy.
There's a great element of truth in there. So look, we've all been in positions where we've completely fucked things up. All of us.
Have we?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, maybe.
Yeah, okay. It doesn't necessarily mean in rugby or in refereeing, but we've all been there. How do you advise people? Because if you do that in a game, and it may well be an international game, how do you put that to the back of your mind? What techniques would you suggest? Because I might need them in the future, and I want to know. What can I do to put a bad performance behind me and move on?
Well, you're a human being after all. I think that's what everybody got to remember, is that's a human being that's made a mistake. And this is actually a story that happened to me. And I was talking to the head referee within wheelchair basketball, and he'd made a few mistakes. And he questioned me, do you, as a player, have you ever made a mistake? And I think every honest person, if they don't put their hand up and say they've never made a mistake in their life, because you're not a robot at the end of the day. So I know people are going to go on social media and troll athletes for making mistakes, not performing, referees not coming on the right side of the verdict. At the end of the day, that person's a human being. But I think when it comes to elite sport, I think people forget that. I think they assume that, well, I want you to perform, I want to watch, I want to be entertained, but any human aspect of it, I don't feel comfortable with it yet. But you want the athlete or the professional to showcase every aspect of their lives. So I guess it's like one of these things where, in terms of, to answer your question, so I don't go off on a tangent, he probably will do, is ultimately you're judged on past experiences, but as an athlete, if it's good, bad, or indifferent, you have to analyze that and move on. And I think the referee will do exactly the same. Ultimately, they're probably held to a higher standard, I think, than athletes. And I think coaches are probably similar. As if a player messes up, and I wouldn't say this in football, I would say I'd generalize, say it's more football than this rugby. The players get their managers sacked, and then ultimately their performance improves. I would question the player.
You find that sort of gone a bit far these days as well, because elite sports seem to be, there's very small margins between making a mistake and not making a mistake. And that tiny little mistake now, because elite sport is so competitive and there's so small differences between all the top players. Do you think it's gone a bit far now in that we criticize so often? We criticize in top players all the time, and top in any sport, even referees, players, coaches. Do you think? I personally think we've gone too far. We should expect mistakes.
I don't think it's like that though, Julian. I think it's more how easy keyboard warriors are and social media, because we're a bit the same with our little WhatsApp group when there's a game on. You know, oh, he's fucked up there, or he's done this. But I mean, like,
Christ. We couldn't publish half the stuff you write, Pete.
Yeah, well,
we couldn't publish any of the stuff Pete writes.
But if you see what I mean, is that everybody can be a keyboard warrior about how. I mean, like, I'm first to admit the referee had a shocker, but I mean, James, what you probably touched on was he probably won't referee an England game for a long time, due to the fact that he could have the mindset was like, I fucked up there, I might favour England, or they might not put him on to, because he's trying to, you know, when you try and rectify a mistake by favouring the team that you've knackered before or something like that. So I don't think he'll probably be an England referee for a long time to come.
I don't agree with you there, Pete. I'm sorry, but I think as soon as he's had one good game, just to get that confidence back, I think he'll be back on doing the panel again and put on England games, depending on if it's available and all the rest of it.
Here's a question then.
To get it back again.
Well, here's a question then on the same string thoughts. How long was it before Jubes went back and actually refereed or took part in a Scotland game?
Well, he retired
after the World Cup. No, he didn't. He didn't. No.
He went on to the Seventh Circuit.
No, he was actually 2 years or something like that before he actually had a Scotland game, and I think he was assistant referee for it.
He went on to the Seventh Circuit because
he went on the Seventh Circuit, yeah. But when it was on the 15th side of things, he was an assistant ref up in Murrayfield.
It was the Olympics, and that's why they went on the Seventh Circuit after these proper refs, because the Olympics.
I watched them referee his first Sevens game in Dubai.
Who?
Jubes.
Did he cheer him on?
But yeah, I mean,
Australia should.
James, what? I know you play basket. Is it basketball? And you play volleyball. What about murder ball?
Not disabled enough.
Wheelchair rugby, they call it these days.
Yeah.
Oh, it's got loads of names, Julian. It's I think they should go back to it. I think the Americans had it right by calling that, because it's pretty much carnage. It's not rugby.
Just so you know, it was a Canadian who invented murder ball.
My apologies.
But do you know who the reigning world champions are?
Don't say it's Sweden.
Well, no, last year it was Sweden. It wasn't this. Oh, it wasn't last time. It was the time before it was Sweden.
What,
Denmark.
I think it's either Denmark or Finland, one of the two. I can't remember. But I know it's not
Denmark.
Sweden. But we've won it quite a few times over here. I can't believe how big it is, how popular it's been over here. They're all bloody nuts playing that. It's crazy. I played it once. I didn't think I'd ever get my fingers back at the end of it.
the Rugby Foundation sponsored 3 events leading into the pandemic last year, international competitions in Las Vegas. I have a question though, and it's more of a comment, but it's going to lead into a question. The world stage that these referees are performing on, and I've had this discussion with the like the professional NFL referees and things like this, because there's millions of dollars of commercialization in each one of these games, including broadcast capabilities and failures and lost revenue and stuff like that, right? I mean, there's taking everything being equal, there's going to be a much bigger fallout because somebody at this top level stage, messes up a call or a serious call that potentially impacts the outcome of a game versus somebody at the grassroots level. So I know that we were talking about that. Mike was mentioning that we've all fucked up games and everything else. Yeah, we've all done it, but none of us have done it on a, not that I'm aware of, none of us have done it in a world-class top level stage. And there's a bigger outcomes as a result of that.
Mike's there going, I have.
Yeah, and it was just one of those anonymous things that happened just as I'm about to make a call in Dubai, and then the button falls off my belt. I'm flapping around. By the time the call comes in, it'd have been easy just to leave it. It wasn't terribly much. It was a knock on into touch. They gave it the wrong way. And by that point, it just sounded so shit that the referee just went with his original decision. It'd have been better, probably, with hindsight, to leave it. And then, of course, you get the debrief. Why did you do that? Why did you say it like that? So there is that pressure on you, and it was just one of those things. But we all learn from those. Hopefully, we'll learn from them, and we do try and move on. Some people find it easier to move on than others.
So what did you learn from that, Mike?
If the button falls off your radio belt, keep the fucking gob shut.
I think you probably felt like you should have been like 5 years old and you figured out how to tie a belt again.
I felt really, really stupid. Got to tell you, it felt absolutely I mean, I'm small anyway, but I felt minuscule. But on that note, it's a great place to leave it. So, Phil, do the honours, please, as we go into the break. There we go. It's time for a Diet Pepsi break. We'll be with you right after this.
When you need clear and concise match official communication systems, look no further than the brand new AxiWe AT350.
Radios are always useful, they always help us, especially AxiWes, where all 3 of us can be open at any time, we can have open communication.
Available now from refcomsglobal.net. Investing profits into match official development worldwide.
Welcome back to part 2 of tonight's 22 Dropouts, where we're joined by, of course, somebody who knows how to run the show and the podcast, Mr. James Owen Roberts, as it says so on here. His is much more professional than ours, by the way, so do go and check it out. It's the Mindful Athlete, James?
The Mindset Athlete.
The Mindset Athlete. You see, I can't even get the name of my guest's podcast right. So Mindset Athlete, go and check it out wherever you get your normal podcasts from. Now, one of the things we were talking about just before the break is the way that sometimes we're sort of set up on that pedestal, aren't we? And James brought it home to us that we do seem to like to knock them off. And that's true of some of the criticism that we see on social media. We'd rather criticize these top athletes for the small mistakes they make rather than the great good that they do. And in many ways, that goes for the match officials as well. But, as James quite rightly pointed out, we're all human. We all do make mistakes. And we have to all learn from them and grow from them. But you look at the rugby pitch and you see players knock on, miss passes, drop balls. And what happens is their teammates will come up and console them, pat them on the head, say, don't worry, it's my fault. No, it's my fault. No, it's my fault. Does that ever happen to a match official? Can you ever remember a player coming along and going, don't worry about that, we all make mistakes, sir? I don't think so. So, that pedestal is a lot higher for us.
I'll say to you there, Mike, I have had a coach say that. during a game.
Were you that bad?
I wasn't having a good day. Let's put it that way. And I made a mistake, and I knew about it. And the players had a good old whinge about it. And the coach for that team, where I'd been made a few mistakes against them, basically shouted from the sidelines, "Lads, shut the fuck up. He's making less mistakes than you are." Which
There
I
you
thought,
go.
I couldn't
You
stop
must have had
laughing
a
on the
lot.
pitch for about 10 minutes. It was brilliant. Dave
And,
Ray,
and what,
thank you very
what
much.
team was this, Julian?
This was Södertälje in Sweden.
So it definitely wasn't
He
going to be
came back
Welsh,
and
was
won.
it?
Ray, who is a fantastic chap, Englishman. And
So there you go. Great shout out. Of course, he's a fantastic chap. You've just said he's English.
Yeah, not Welsh.
Played for Sweden, though. Played for Sweden.
We can choose. It's the same. You can choose your friends, but not your family. Okay. Now, over the weekend, and I'm just pausing for the over the weekend while I go and start my stopwatch. Otherwise, we'll just ramble on like we did last week. Anyway, over the weekend, there was some breaking news. Saris had their first game in the Green King IPA Championship. And I only say the Green King IPA Championship because I'd love Green King IPA to send me some Green King IPA, and we can advertise Green King IPA on our show. As it is, Green King, I am drinking Abbott Reserve tonight. Lovely, rich and malty, I think you describe it as. But anyway, they were away.
We need to pint.
In fact, I think Green King sent some consolation beer up to Saracens because they went all the way down to Cornwall and got turned over.
Too many pasties. They probably put the clotted cream on first.
Is that what it was? That's why they got so many penalties.
I can never remember which way round it is. But yeah.
Well, okay, right. Well. Let's cover this off now. All right. I'm going to state it as a fact. If you put cream on first, then when you try and put the jam on, all it does is wipes the cream away because of the different consistencies. You must, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you must put the jam on first. Then you can spread the cream over the top. But always, always use two different knives.
Right, okay.
Hashtag you heard it here first.
Did you say cream first?
Mike.
Did I?
Mike.
No, I mean jam first.
Thank you. I was thinking, what
Pete, you always put your jam on before you make the cream, don't
jam
you?
First. Devon cream first. That's it.
No.
What are we
Jam.
talking about here?
No.
God, it's one of the biggest
Think
arguments in the
about-
world, Phil.
think
You
about
don't know
it.
this.
Okay.
You put
Right,
the cream on first or the jam on first on a
Julian,
cream
stop.
scone?
Julian, stop, right? Stop
Pete,
right there.
you've got
because
the
I'll put it
floor,
right, okay? Right, I'm Cornish. Born there, lived there, everything, right? Tell by my 6 fingers, right? And everything is that you put the jam on first and then you put Cornish cream on first, not Devon cream, dickhead, right?
I said clotted, didn't
Okay, and no, you said Devon cream, right?
I think
Which
you said clotted.
right-
No, I said in
Right.
Devon. I said in
Really?
Devon they put the cream on first because
No.
they're a bit backwards.
They are a bit backward, right? So my mate used to teach in Tiverton, and it's quite an inbred society. Phil, you'll know this, right? It's quite an inbred society, and on if some kids acting up in class, they check their birth certificate, and if it says NFT written at the top, they say it's normal for Tiverton. So yeah, so that's just a Devon joke, that one, but never mind. So but going back to your thing is that it was St. Piran's Day, which is the Cornish National Day with our Cornish national flag that we're trying to get away from Brexit and have our own border and all this lot, which I'm all for.
Is that where Cornish hens come from?
You okay, my lover? Are you okay, my lover? Sorry, Cornish what?
Hens.
Cornish what?
Cornish hens.
Cornish hands. That's a Cornish hand, isn't it?
No, it's like this. I don't know. It's like this. There you are. Right. So that's Cornish hands. So yeah. So but we beat the Saracens that have got a stakehold in the Premiership on Saturday. So I was on Sunday. Was it Sunday, Saturday? But anyway, we beat them 20, 30, 25 or something. Or 30. I don't know. It was a good game.
30 something, 20 something.
Yeah, we beat them.
But the interesting thing is the commentators were very keen to point out that there is playoffs in the championship, because whatever happens, the Premier Rugby League Limited are determined, mainly because Saracens own one of the board seats, to get Saracens back in. So you can just imagine, if Saracens do not make the playoffs, they will reinvent a completely new rule to make sure they get to the playoffs. And then if Saracens lose a playoff, well, of course, it'll be settled on the toss of a coin or something. I would say it would be settled with a kicking contest, but Owen might just miss, so they can't afford that. But yeah, what a great result. And it's not, I know that they've been putting out some of the younger guys, and of course, their star men are away with England at the moment, doing a fucking shit job, I might add. But they've lost a few games already. So we've had several warm-up games that they've lost, and they're the first game of the season. I think it's going to be. This is probably the first time ever, in all seriousness now, that Championship Rugby in England has been put firmly on the map, and actually people are interested in it. And they might actually get interested enough to watch a game. You never know. But this is the first time that really people are invested in that second tier of English rugby.
But it's not a full. Is it a full season because they're starting halfway through?
No, it's a shortened season, limited in tiers, and then goes to playoff, just so that Saracens can get back into the Premiership.
But they'll be put in with the Cornish Pirates, Ealing, and Saracens, and who else is down there? Richmond.
Is Richmond Championship?
No, I think they've gone down to 2, haven't they?
I think they're 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Could be Welsh or Scottish.
Welsh are up there.
Be London and Welsh, yeah.
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 So anyway, that wasn't the only bit of good news. We have had some good news for the HSBC circuit, and I was going to ask Mr. Klavoric to talk to us about that, but he's fucking disappeared off the screen. Here he comes back.
I'm here, just like
another meeting,
I'm having buffering issues, and I just works a little bit better with the screen off.
So HSBC Sevens is coming back. They've announced dates.
Yeah, we need to get back at this, and I'm glad that they took the initiative and put a schedule out that, while it doesn't have some firm dates, they don't have the London dates, they don't have Vancouver's dates. There's certainly no Las Vegas or LA dates, although they're going to create that as a warm up for the Olympics in June, I believe, June 25th, 26th, that weekend. So it's kind of exciting to be able to get that back. Going to look at trying to go to the Hong Kong and Dubai. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You know what I mean?
I got a suggestion for you. I got a suggestion for you over in America. LA's a bit big, yeah? So there's lots of people there with a pandemic on. Wouldn't it be better to put it somewhere smaller like Vegas?
They never called me.
Build it out in the desert. Build a stadium in the desert, or a pitch in the desert.
I've got a $2+ billion stadium, brand new.
Oh, they got
the Stadium.
What's it called? The Spaghetti Bowl or something?
No, the Raiders Stadium. No, you're thinking of Silver Bowl.
No, where we did the Sevens.
Yeah, Silver Bowl. Sam Boyd Stadium. Sam Boyd.
Pete, we've all seen the photos and the videos from your time in Vegas, and we know that actually the time you spent anywhere doing any rugby or at a stadium is very, very limited, because most of your time is in the back of a stretch limo.
Maybe.
On that note, it is great news that HSBC Sevens has announced some dates and is coming back, and the warm-ups, which are going to be used for the Olympics as well, and things like that. So wait with bated breath on those. Still on the good news front, although there was a legal debate today online, which I won, mainly because mainly because the counsel for the prosecution just fucked off and never bothered to answer. So I win by default. And he tried to sack a Wasps prop from the front row union for his wonderful breakaway at the weekend. Footwork like a ballet dancer. pass out the back like he was a basketball star, like James. And he was blowing out of his arse like he's an old fat referee like me. But yeah, at least he didn't get white line fever and go down in a sack of shit. It was a complete display of wonderful rugby until he realised that his legs wouldn't carry him anymore. So well done for giving it a go. And I bet he's damn glad that there was somebody with faster legs coming alongside him.
Boy, did he have faster legs? He went through 3 players.
Yeah. Well, he was coming at speed as well. And what is it? Was he a 6 or a 7? The guy who got it? I can't remember who got it. He was certainly. I'm sure he was a flank forward, wasn't he?
I thought it was one of the backs.
I thought it might have been, but we don't like backs anyway, so never mind.
Back, fuck off.
Yeah, but you're built like a prop, so that's okay. We love you because
centre,
of that.
mate. Inside centre, we all look the same.
Julian, right? You said you're a back. Every game I've played with you, you've always been front row. always been with the
last time I played with UP, I played scrum half, so fuck off.
Yeah, and I played fly half, and I was in hospital by fucking half time.
If I played again at all, I'd be in hospital before half time. Anyway, talking of the Wasps game, we had another red card in the Wasps game. This time it was for, and I don't know why I've just selected Phil, who's trying to do some work on his other computer. Hi, Phil. You're on camera. I don't know why I just selected you to be spotlighted on camera, but hello. Anyway, it was Ollie Thorley from Gloucester, who got shown the red card after knocking himself out. For those who may not have seen it, and I'm sure you have, just go and check it out on social media, where every man, dog, child, woman, cat, and rabbit seems to have an opinion. This is to do with the new head-on-head protocols. Jules, do you want to just describe what happened and how you saw it in the game? Because I know you watched it.
I've watched the incident. I haven't seen the whole game, but player's gone up in the air to get for a ball from a kick. He's moved forward. Somebody's come to tackle him and slow him down. He's got away from it, and then he's run head on into somebody. So they've run straight into each other.
I just love the way you're praying.
Yeah, I know. I'm praying for the Wales win next weekend.
So yeah, what's happened is he's taken the ball. He's come to ground. So that's it now. It can be a legal tackle.
Yeah,
he's on the ground.
The tackle's
timing is great.
Timed, but he's come in upright. His arms are this height, so he's come in to grab him here. And as he's hit him, the contact is so hard, his head's jogged forward. Both of their heads are jogged forward, and there's a head collision, and he's got to knock himself out. Yeah,
so this is a really, really tough one because in the past that would just be it's a rugby incident. We've heard that term used an awful lot. As it is with the new focus about head collisions, there's a very, very different protocol that the match officials are following. So I see sort of both sides of it, but just like we used to do something over here one season, then now we do something different, you can't still argue that something different is the case. And I know that the guys on comms at the weekend, Austin, that was like, well, it should just, hello, Mel. Is Mel going for a wee-wee, Sam?
Silence.
Sammy. Knock, knock, Sam. Mel, just check your dad hasn't died, will you?
Did I send her a text?
Yeah. It's starting. He's starting. His face is moving. Oh, you know how to wind him up, mate.
Oh, if somebody could get stabbed right here now, I know which two it would be.
Hey, Sam, she's got a text.
Okay, I'm just taking you into the waiting room for a moment before you start with each other. Anyway, so look, it is tough, and I do see both sides of the coin. But I've asked around an awful lot since it happened at the weekend. So the first thing is, was there head-on-head contact? That's the first question that is asked. and of course there was. The second question is not here. Was it illegal? Is the next question. Yes, it is. It is illegal in the new guidelines that they're operating under, because you just cannot make contact with another player's head. The big thing here now for me, and the best way I heard it described over the weekend, was they now need to ask, was it avoidable? And although it was like you said, Jules, it was technically a legal tackle because the arms were around the chest, they weren't high, so it was legal, but it is avoidable because he had the option of going lower. And of course, there was no mitigation because of the speed and the power that he came running in at. Now, bear in mind, the referees are now looking at, first of all, was there the contact? Was it illegal? Now asking the question of avoidable. Sam, what do you think, if you apply the avoidable, what do you think the outcome should have been there?
It's a red card.
Did you think it was a red card at the time?
Yes.
And is that for...
It's a red card. At the end of the day, yes, it wasn't meant. He didn't deliberately go and like drive into the guy with his head or anything like that. It was a legal tackle, as in his arms were wrapped. It's just with the momentum, the way they hit each other, you could class it as a rugby incident, but because of the height and, you know, everything about the head collisions and everything's going on, so it's a red card by letter of the law. That's why they're refereeing it. So at the end of the day, he actually came off worse. He was on the side of the pitch, couldn't come back on after HIA because he's got about 20 stitches in his eyebrow. So
yeah, exactly. Now, listen, before we just ask everybody else, James, you're going to have to go do the family stuff and things like that. Now, Sale Shark shirt on tonight, mate?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what was that you said to me earlier? Didn't wear it when they were losing all those years ago?
Yeah, but that's when they used to play in Sale, not Salford.
Fair point. And on that bombshell, it's time to say goodnight to James. James, you're welcome back anytime. You can talk about Sale and their winning ways. It's been lovely to have you on. It's lovely to get the point of view of somebody different as well, and to see what goes through other people's minds. So yeah, if you're ever bored on a Monday night, not that you're ever going to be this bored, but if it does happen, just jump on every Monday night at 7:30, mate. You take care.
Warn us so we can watch one of your basketball games beforehand.
Well, that's non-existent in this country.
Yeah, right now. Yeah.
Lovely. You take care, James. We'll speak soon. See you now.
Bye.
Good night. Now, Jules, on same question as to Sam. Bearing in mind we need to use this word avoidable. What's your thoughts now on
with that
outcome?
guideline? With that guideline, you have to give a red card there.
Yeah,
I don't particularly like it. I think, was it avoidable? Yes. Yeah. If that player had done what a lot of players would do, which would be duck down and try and protect himself from the shoulder, that wouldn't have happened. If his head had dropped, normally when a head drops, they get the shoulder and we've got mitigation for something. In this case, if it had dropped, it wouldn't happen. If he'd have braced for that contact and he'd had time to, it was just he perfectly timed the hit to when he hit the ground. So he's come down,
the end of it is,
ground and bam, straight on him. It's just
people were talking about, well, now it's become outcome led and things like this, and to a large extent it has. But I tell you what, we're going to have to pick this up after the break because we're a little bit over time here. But we'll come back and we'll get a few more thoughts on that in just 2 minutes. Welcome back to part 3 of tonight's 22 Dropouts. Don't forget, check up there, look at our social media channels, and go and search out 22 Dropouts, because Jules is going to do a really good job now of our social media, because he's asked twice for the passwords, and he's had them both times. So hopefully, yeah, I go along it. Yeah, any fucking excuse because you haven't tried. Now, just before the break, as you know, we were talking about the Ollie Thorley red card, and now that I think we said the best way that it's been described to me is: was it legal? Yes. Was it avoidable? It's probably a better way of putting it. And when you add that in, it sort of clears things up. Phil, you've seen. I know you haven't seen the game, but you saw the incident. What's your opinion of incidents like that?
I didn't see the incident.
So you weren't watching in the break then when we, between.
No, but my whole thing was being buffered and it was stopping. I couldn't see it.
Do you know what? He'll make a good referee, this bloke. I would ask Pete, but he's just buggered off again.
I'm here.
And Pete, what's your thoughts using this avoidable? Was it avoidable? How do you think that affects decision making, and does that make it any clearer for us as referees and for players as well?
Okay, so avoidable can be like, has the player made enough effort to make it avoidable? Has the tackler made it enough effort? And that's basically what they're after. They're after everybody to tackle lower.
Yeah.
Has he had time to do it?
Yeah,
Yes.
And he did, because he stopped.
Yeah.
He did actually stop.
No.
He paused his running up to go and take out the player. He actually slowed down for the player to get the ball, and then he wanted to hammer him.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at the one on Friday night, which is probably the worst one of the weekend, isn't it? Where he accelerates forwards and upwards with a tucked arm. There was never, I know he's been on social media apologising and saying he never intended to hurt anybody. And I get that and I believe that. But at the same time, it's a physical sport. You never want to go into a tackle or any other situation deliberately trying to hurt somebody. What you want to do is to deliberately dominate them. And what he tried there was to deliberately dominate the ball carrier in that tackle. And he got it spectacularly wrong. And I think out of all the red cards we've seen this weekend, the one on Friday night is probably going to be, what was it, the London Irish one? I think that's probably going to be the lengthiest ban of the weekend.
So last weekend we had quite a lot of red cards, didn't we? This weekend, we've had 2, maybe 3. All right, they will slowly decrease. They will slowly decrease because the coach has said, if you want to serve a ban, still tackle high, get lower, tackle properly, aim for the ball, because the ball's the lowest point, really, isn't it?
The problem is people don't, coaches coach their players to take man and ball. So you want to be able to either attack the ball so that it can be ripped out by you or by a co-tackler, or you want to prevent that offload. And of course, if you're just taking people around their knees or their hips, their arms are free to offload. And it's trying to dominate that tackle area to stop the offloading game. And those that do it well will lift the ball up and get their arms free of the tackle and then offload. And you look how the Fijians do that, whether they're playing 15s or 7s. They're absolutely amazing at it. Now, a few other things. In fact, going directly to Wales, because that's where the headlines are today. Mr. Jones.
Mr. Alan Wynne. He has it looks like he's got an offer from one of the Japanese sides.
Which one? I've not heard this.
I don't know yet. I haven't read that far yet.
Oh, it's so new. We don't even
it
know
is
which
such new news.
Such new news.
All we know is he's got an
first.
offer from a Japanese side to play there next season. So at the end of this season. So after the Six Nations, his contract is up with the Ospreys in the summer. So
has there been any rumours about or news about Ospreys offering him a new contract? Because I heard
Ospreys will want to keep him.
Well, you see, earlier on in the year, I heard that they perhaps couldn't afford him, and he'd had offers from a team in the USA. I don't know which one it is. I don't know if you've heard, Phil.
I have not.
No, but he's definitely got an offer in Japan, and I know the Welsh boys are very. Pete's just put a comment up for those who can't see it. I'm not going to say what it was.
There's a few sheep in Japan.
Yeah. But yeah, he's got an offer from Japan, and I know the Welsh boys loved it out there during the World Cup. So I would, if he'd be daft not to go.
Well, it's either that or France, because Wales has got nothing to offer. So
he's what, 35 now. He's got how many years left in him? A
Do
few.
you reckon he could or will do any more in Wales if he stayed? Would he still?
Yes. He'll keep going in Wales.
He'd still
stay
be
up
picked
there.
for Wales, wouldn't he? He'd still be
Of
picked
course
for
he would.
Wales.
He's-
He will be the Owen Farrell of Wales, where he's undroppable.
Not quite, but he's a leader in that team, in that Welsh team.
But that's
He's a
what they say
solid
about
leader.
Owen Farrell.
Yeah. And
but
he
Alan
works
Wynn's
his
got
ass off.
intelligence.
And
He's got
then
intelligence.
if he stays in Wales, they can look after him in that they can manage the number of games he plays. And they do that now because he's picked up a few injuries over the years. He's been playing for a bloody long time. Yeah, he's the most capped Welsh player now. So if he stays in Wales, he'll get looked after. The Welsh Rugby Union will chip in and pay his wages probably, and he'll be well looked after on the pitch. If he goes to Japan, the same will happen. He'll probably play a lot more. He'll play a decent standard over there as well. He'll get to experience living in another country, which would be fantastic for him and his family. And he'll earn a shitload of money, which he won't go with. I honestly, for him and his family, I think the best thing, if he's got an offer from Japan, is to fucking go. And I hate to say it, I'd hate to lose him because he's a fantastic player, a great leader for the Welsh national team, and we'll miss him. But there's
one thing. Right? We're saying about our 9, 10, and 12 channel. Are they going to be at the next World Cup? Is Alan Wynne going to be at the next World Cup? And you'll probably say, yes, he will be
if
there.
he stays at Ospreys.
Right? Yeah, he will be there. But how old will he be? 38?
Yeah. No.
Right? It'd be 38 years old, right?
He's 35.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the question is, do Wales want to win? If they do, they need to have the next level ready.
Yeah, and so they got 2 years to prepare for somebody. And to be fair, the rugby life after playing is not the greatest pay.
No, that's why they go to France, so they can get their 2 years extra pay. Now, talking about the Welsh, and I'm going to come back to something that we talked about earlier on with the Wasps prop and how he's joined the ranks of the fly halves. I'm going to say to you now, if he can outrun Louis Rees-Zammit, I will concede that he should be sacked from the front row union and be made a 10. Because I don't think a gazelle or a cheetah, or a gazelle being chased by a cheetah, can outrun Louis Rees-Zammit at the moment. That kid is phenomenal.
He's quick, isn't he?
Look, he's not just quick, he's light on his feet and he can move around. He's got a great eye on him, a great brain.
Got this as well.
Yeah, he's certainly got the rugby brain.
It's like David Strettle. He was quick.
Now, there's a name you don't hear very often anymore, but yeah, he was. Yeah. Definitely. Well, you've just killed the conversation with that. Anyway, talking about the World Cups and things like that, as we were, with a wonderful segue, the Women's Rugby World Cup has announced it's going to delay for a year. Obviously, because of COVID and things like that. How is that going to affect things? How is that going to affect other competitions, Jules? Because I know you're quite heavily involved in that side of things.
It's a good thing. It's got to be done. It's about time World Rugby took the decision and postponed it. It's not good in the fact that we have to postpone it. There's preparations in place and all the rest of it. But it will give people 12 months now to plan and actually have fans at the games from the other countries so they can actually travel to New Zealand and go to the matches. Because if it was going to be in New Zealand now, they'd fill the parks up, I reckon. They'd get the fans in there, but it would be all Kiwis and locals who from all the other countries that take part, who live in New Zealand already. So there'd be no traveling fans. The atmosphere wouldn't be the same. You wouldn't have that World Cup atmosphere. It would just be a local game atmosphere, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But when you go to a World Cup, you want to meet people from other countries.
So on that note then, mate, the Lions is about to announce something. They were going to announce it last week. South Africa were going to announce the week before. We're still all in limbo. So it happens, let's say it happens in the UK because it's safer to bring teams to the UK than it is to take fans to South Africa. And at the moment, I have got to say, that is true. And that fan safety and player safety and population safety has got to be the most important factor. So taking your example of what you just said about, fans, how do you think that's going to affect the Lions if it does come to the UK? Where we're going to, let's face it, we're going to have limited fans still in the stadium, but we're going to have some.
I think they're better off postponing it for 2 years.
Okay.
Play as a World Cup warm-up.
So okay, you postpone it for 2 years. Where are they supposed to be in 2 years?
Well, the World Cup.
Every 4 years.
Yeah, exactly. So we're supposed to be at the World Cup. So that's going to
cancel it, or
Australia.
I just don't see it.
And then in 4 years' time, it's Australia next, isn't it?
The only reason for playing it is to get the cash in from playing the games now.
Yes, it is. It is.
I just hope. I mean, right. I just hope it all. I mean, like, I wanted to go to South Africa to watch the Lions, and I bet a lot of people did.
Yeah.
And the one thing that needs to be done is the massive cash injection that would have been done to their country. Would have been massive. And I just hope that somebody comes up with a great idea to, if you buy a ticket, £5, £10, or whatever it is, goes back to South Africa, to the communities where it would have benefited to make them play rugby or something. There needs to be something.
But it's not just,
to get out.
50,000 travelling fans, all those restaurants that are going to miss out on their intake, all the bars that are going to miss it out, all the travel companies, the safari tours, all the guys selling drinks on the beaches, all the food, all the supermarkets are going to get an extra 50. All that extras, they're gone.
Guy selling scarves outside the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Guys saying, you want to buy some sunglasses because it's fucking hot.
Pete, I like your idea, Pete. The problem is the money will never ever make it to the people who are going to get the money, guaranteed. Never make it.
Everybody wants to see the Lions, right? I mean, everybody wants to go on the trip. For one, I was heading for the Lions for the first one for me for so. The Lions is about touring. That's what the Lions has always been about, where the guys come together for back in the old days when it was 18, whenever it was. They went for a year, and they played like 6 months worth of matches or whatever it was, you know what I mean? Something crazy times, playing matches out for God knows how long. I mean, they were away for years at a time or something. To now we're away for 10 weeks or whatever that. The Lions is all about touring. So unfortunately, because of the way the circumstances is, I would rather see it postponed than it go ahead and then the game's being played in the UK, because it certainly doesn't look like it's going to be played in South Africa.
No,
I agree with you, Sam. Sorry, Mike. I agree with you, Sam. I don't agree with a 2-year postponement though, because it messes up the whole World Cup cycle. But a 1-year postponement around the same time next year, that would be fine. The problem is they got to get the venues and everything else, right? So,
can I ask a question and follow up on what Mike had brought up about the Lions? So, on the same concept, why were the Six Nations teams not then all kept in a certain area and all the games being played at a neutral venue like the Olympic Stadium or something, so that way the French could not go and catch COVID or any teams and all the rest of it? Why could they not have done that instead of all the travelling, staying in all the different hotels, all the different coach services, trains, planes, automobiles? Why could they not have all stayed in one base and had the whole tournament played at one stadium?
It's a very good point. And I'd love to get some of the guys that I know from Six Nations Rugby on to answer those questions. And if you're watching, then do give us a shout and come on.
If you're filming it without any fans, you don't need a big stadium. You just need a pitch.
No,
exactly. It's not like they're getting money for the home.
Let's just put them at Rosalind Park. Let's just put them at Rosalind Park. It'll be fine.
Stick them down at Richmond.
Get them.
Nice pitch there.
Well, that's it. If it was completely neutral, so nobody's home ground at all.
Exactly. It'd have to be like an Olympic stadium or something like that.
I think like in Vegas Islands for a weekend.
Have it in Vegas.
Wherever.
Yeah, because we'll do it in Vegas. We'll do the Six Nations and the Lions and everything else in Vegas because they don't have COVID.
Yeah, they've got nothing to do with COVID over there.
No, I don't see why they couldn't have done that. They could have held the tournament in one location. And
Isle of Man, nobody's allowed in.
Yeah,
that's why they're not doing it in the Isle of Man.
I mean,
in fact, the last guy who tried to get into the Isle of Man on a jet ski got jailed.
I'm referring the Isle of Man.
Did you see that? The guy who tried to sort of pre-COVID or in the middle of COVID, when people were allowed out, he met a girl. I think he was a jock actually, Sam. He met a girl who was from the Isle of Man, and he decided that he was going to get a jet ski and drive over to the Isle of Man to see his girlfriend, and so got caught and got jailed on the Isle of Man, which is classic. Not as good as the other guys who were trying to do something in the North Sea a couple of weeks ago, something naughty and illegal on a jet ski, but didn't actually put enough petrol in it, and then had to be rescued. Now, I think they might be in prison by now too. So how do you think this is going to affect? So, well, look, you could postpone it for 12 months, which is probably better than the 2 years, because 2 years, of course, is France 2023. Are we actually really assuming that we're all going to be good and this is all done, finished, and to bed by 2023? Or are we still going to feel the knock-on effects?
There's going to be knock-on effects on this for 10 years, I reckon.
Yeah, and you talk about
stop
South
planning
Africa
because of fear factor. I mean,
no, we're not.
That's the BS, right? I mean, we're all going to still. I would hope. I hope we're going to start planning and keep planning, just like things are going to go back to a new normal.
That's what I like, the new normal. I don't even like the word normal. Things are going to be different in the future. We don't know how they're going to be, but we can't stop planning so that we can play this game.
Exactly. Do you think during World War II people stopped planning for the future?
We just have to find the ways to make it work.
Of course we do. Of course we do.
New normal.
Yeah. And on that, I think that's a brilliant time to end, because we've gone quite a little bit over time tonight. But it's been a great discussion. It's been great to have James on as well and to hear his thoughts and how he prepares. And just the way that I think he's as calm as anything. He's like a little mill pond, isn't he? Nothing seems to faze him. And I'd love to be in that situation before a big game. And maybe what James has got, we should just bottle and produce as a vaccine to nervousness. But we'll probably carry on with this conversation for a lot longer tonight. But from me, from the team tonight, and from James, it's a very good night, and we'll see you next week. Good night. Take care.